All right, so in this video, I'm going to talk about when you should actually hire an SDR team or try to build outbound or direct outreach as a resource internally versus when you should actually outsource it to an agency or a freelancer or something like that. And I've actually wanted to record this video for quite a while because I think we have a unique perspective. Obviously, I'm a bit biased because I run an outbound agency. If I didn't think that there was cases where that made the most sense, then I wouldn't really have a business. It wouldn't make sense to run an agency. But at the same time, like I've seen so many examples of businesses that have tried to hire internally and build outbound internally, but like then figured out how much it actually takes and then went to us or someone else to help them actually do it. And I've also seen like quite a few examples of businesses where they've actually made outbound work extremely well in-house, and that is like the right approach for them. So the idea is to try and break down when it makes sense and when it doesn't. If you didn't know, as mentioned, I run an agency called Danish Lead Co. My name is Frederik Jakobsen. Every month we book more than 400 meetings just for our clients. We have booked more than 10,000 sales meetings over the past 3 years. And yeah, we've generated like way north of $30 million in directly attributed revenue for our clients. So in my opinion, there's essentially two numbers that decides whether you should outsource or do outbound or direct outreach internally. So the first number is how big is your TAM. So total addressable market, if you didn't know, essentially just means how many total contacts would you be able to find to be able to like reach out to. And here I'm not talking about like how many companies. TAM like is probably that, but here I'm talking about how many potential contacts would there be. Some clients, there it makes sense to reach out to 10 people or 100 people at every company. So then of course you would multiply that, but most it's one or two people that makes like a lot of sense to really reach out to at that company. But I think if you have a TAM of less than 3 or 4,000 total like contacts that you could reach out to, you shouldn't be thinking about outsourcing, or you shouldn't be thinking about like automating. You should be thinking about how can I hire the best possible salespeople or the best possible SDRs that can actually go out and build relationships and go to all the industry events and go to do the cold calls and go to them and build relationships, because at that stage, typically your deal size will be a lot bigger, and it just makes a lot more sense because there you can actually be personal. But of course, it takes that you can actually hire how to, and actually know how to hire good salespeople as well. And the other number is how many emails you want to be sending per month, which sort of ties into the first one as well. So I think in general, it doesn't make that much sense to try to build out the function internally and hire the people that you would need to be able to do that if you don't run at a decent scale. And a decent scale, I would say something like maybe 100,000 to 200,000 emails per month. There, it starts to make sense to actually hire internally, because there you have enough volume to occupy someone full time, and where you actually get enough data that you can actually optimize on that data. So to dive a bit more into detail. So in my opinion, if you want to run outbound scaled like cold email or LinkedIn outreach, probably primarily cold email, that's the primary thing that we do. We do some LinkedIn outreach and DM as well. But I would say it takes 2 to 4 people. Now that some of those people can be you as the founder or CEO or marketing person or whoever, but it will take up a decent amount of your time, especially in the beginning. If you're new to it, it very quickly becomes a full-time job. So then it also requires someone that can actually handle the replies when they come in and convert them as well. So if you don't have a salesperson that is dedicated to that, or an AI system or something like that can actually do that and convert the replies at a relatively high rate into meetings or into free trials or whatever you're optimizing for, then outbound is not really going to make sense. And then you need a technical player. So you need someone that understands deliverability, understands the technical infrastructure that it takes to make cold email make sense, and to be something where you can actually scale it and rely on it and build out like internal systems where you can track how are your domains performing and when do you need to ditch a domain and buy a new one because you start landing in spam and all of these things. And then you need someone, and that can be the same person, that can both write the scripts, build the lists, has the business understanding of your business and who are your customers, and can really put themselves in their shoes to actually understand what would they find relevant when reaching out to them. And like, as mentioned, like this very quickly becomes a full-time job if you're running at a like relatively big scale. So, you know, these 100,000, 200,000 emails per month, or if you're just starting out and you actually need to learn all of these foundational things, like you need to syntax your copy and you need to deliverability wise figure out which providers are actually working and how do we set that up and all of these things. So yeah, like we probably spend 3 or 4 hours like easily if it's at a relatively big scale as well. So then your next thought is probably going to be, oh, now there's AI, now we can just do all of it with AI. And you can do a lot of it with AI. The issue is like you can do a lot of it with AI and you can do it relatively easy with AI, but because that has become so easy and because so many people are doing that now, you won't actually stand out if you don't have someone that can actually like still understand all of this. And if you're not like top 1% of this, then it just is not gonna, you're not gonna stand out in the inbox because now people just get more emails. So if you just do the same AI approach where you have the AI run most of it, and like you're just not going to stand out and you're not going to get results. So you need the combination where you can actually leverage AI and all of these new technologies, but at the same time actually have people that understand the business side of things and the technical side of things. And we've done a decent amount of hiring as well. And from my experience, if you want someone that can really understand the outbound motion and understand your business and understand the technical side, at least to a decent level, like you will be paying at least like $5,000 a month. If you go lower than that, then you typically get someone that, so 3 to 4K, then you typically get someone that can like follow instructions, but won't really innovate. And outbound literally changes every 2 months. So if you don't have someone that can like really think for themselves and really do that part, then it's gonna be hard to actually scale that. And this is both if you're hiring like in the Philippines or in South Africa or wherever, like United States, wherever you're hiring, these numbers actually tend to be relatively the same because even like there's not that many people in the Philippines that really match these criteria and can be, in my experience at least, can actually fill the role. So they also know what to like, how to price themselves at this point. And then if you go, like if you actually want someone that is a true operator, can really understand all of this, probably has worked at an agency before, or at least ran all of this internally at another company before, and can really lead the function for you. If this is not going to be you, like that, it could be you, but just expect spending most of your time on it, then you're probably going to be paying like 6, 7, 10K if you really, to really get someone that can actually drive this motion in just one hire. And that's just me being honest, because that's how we do hiring as well. So on the opposite side of the scale, like what you actually get when you go out and hire a full service agency, you get, typically you will get, if it's a decent agency, you'll get all of their experience and all of their internal processes that they've figured out. So because they've ran it at scale for a while, most likely, they will, all of the things that just don't work in general and all of the things that you shouldn't do and should do and all of these things that will take you at least some months to actually figure out yourself. Even if you go out and watch YouTube videos like this for the next 2 weeks, there's still just that learning curve of actually figuring out what works and what doesn't, what can you do and what can't you do. And then you also just get the entire data layer. We have 16 different data sources, some of which are subscriptions to like Apollo or ZoomInfo or LeadMagic and all of these tools. Others are like custom built scrapers that we've built so that we're able to do custom scrapes if it's a directory that we need to, or that makes sense to source from. like an industry directory or government directory, or if it's like Outscraper, if it's Google Maps where these businesses are typically listed. So we have all of these different data providers, and then we're able to pick and choose when to use which and run it at a decent scale. If you went out and wanted to have the same amount of subscriptions, it would just be a lot, because most of them run on a subscription basis. Then you also get recognition like in real time across clients. So because we run 20 plus clients, send a lot of emails, we actually get a lot of data back across clients. Things like testing, just in general, like subject lines, testing in general, what type of CTAs tend to typically work. So we just accumulate like learnings so much faster than if we just had one client. It would just take so much longer to actually draw all of those conclusions. So every time we learn something new on one client, then we try to replicate it on a few others, and then we scale it out across all of our clients. So like we're constantly, each client actually helps improves for the entire client base. And then of course you just get a lot of tooling and a lot of, again, if it's a decent agency, you get a lot of just internal tools. And yeah, like infrastructure. So like there's big agencies out there like Belkins or Science or Callbox, where they've all obviously been in the game for 10 plus years, where they've built up so much infrastructure and so many of these learnings that that's essentially what you're also paying for if you're outsourcing it. Now, yeah, as I mentioned, the other thing is outbound very quickly changes, both as it becomes like easier to just send emails and send like okay emails, and people get more and more emails. It changes with that. And then it also changes with Google and Microsoft, like these providers changing how they recognize whether your email, like whether they think your email is spam or not, which is also something that changes almost from month to month, that you need to be able to spend the time and have the data to actually see and test and be at the forefront. So yeah, like easy campaigns have really been commoditized, and from my experience, it's not like you can't just do it decently anymore and get results. Like now you really have to actually be top 0.1 or top 1% of the emails that they get for you to actually get decent or like disproportionate results with the money that you also invest in outbound. And yeah, like then there's also the question of hiring dedicated agencies that only does outbound or that only does cold email or LinkedIn or whatever you want to invest into, versus an agency that sort of does a lot of different things. And in my opinion, there's pros and cons of both. I think a big pro towards an agency, and that's also why we've decided to only focus on cold email, is simply because it takes, if we fall behind on cold email, then that's our entire business. So we constantly have to actually stay at the forefront and constantly have to test and build new systems and build new tools and constantly test new copywriting and ways of sending the emails and all of these things, where it gets watered down a bit, the actual quality of the service. Now, if you want to go more like all bound and do a lot of different channels, like that can accumulate as well. So I'm not saying one is necessarily better than the other, but if you've decided that outbound should be the best channel for your business and your ICP, or is the channel that you want to invest into now, then I think you typically get more if you actually invest into a business where, or like an agency where that's pretty much the only thing that they do. So essentially the exceptions are to like when you should hire internally or when you should hire outbound agency versus internally. If you send more than 200,000 emails a month, if you're willing to hire like at least one or two people, typically more, to actually run the motion. If you can find the right people, so like the right ex-agency or someone that have actually already have the experience, because otherwise you're going to spend 6 months just them actually getting up to speed with what works and what they can do and all of these things. And like you're also ready to build all of the internal tooling and not just rely on external tools, because everyone else are using that as well. So that's also part of the actually being the top 0.1%. So I hope this video helped and made it a bit clearer, at least from our perspective, when it actually makes sense to hire an agency and when it makes sense to go out and hire SDRs or build out the motion in-house if you want to do cold email or you need to do outbound in general.